Welcome back. On the line with us is our buddy Dean Obeidallah, host of the Dean Obeidallah Show, weekdays 6 to 9 p.m. Eastern Time on Sirius XM Progress, right here on Channel 127. He's a columnist for the Daily Beast, Dean of, among others. Deanofradio.com is his website. You can tweet him at Dean Obeidallah or at SXM Progress. And Dean, you wrote just this absolutely extraordinary piece, and I'm not even going to do the setup for you. I mean, let me toss it to you. You went to sleep on September 10th. Finish the thought.
Sure. Well, it's a sort of summing up my life. On September 10th, I went to sleep a white guy. September 11th, I woke up an Arab. And while that is overly simplistic, it really is the core of my being as an American here. You know, I went pre-9/11, I was really raised to be a white guy. No exaggeration. My dad's Palestinian. My mom, though, was Italian-American, born here in the States. And pre-9/11, while I knew my heritage on my dad's side was Arab, I didn't have Arab friends. I've often joked all my friends pre-9/11 were named like Monica and Chandler and Joey. You know, but then society changed. And in the world post-9/11, it became clear to me that I was now a minority, that my white card, my white privilege, at least part of it, was being taken away by society. And what I mean by that is white people never have to suffer for the worst in your community. Nobody asks white people to answer for the worst white people. There are no politicians openly demonizing white people because of few extremists in your community. That happens to minorities all the time, black, brown, Muslim, whoever we are. It's the world we live in. It was a new world for me. I was not used to it. It was something I had to navigate and deal with. And at times in the beginning, I wanted to remain a white person, to be blunt with you, because while I didn't know what it was like to be a minority, instinctively I knew it would be more challenging. But then in time, I began to embrace my minority status, and now I'm unapologetically a minority. I view the news, the world, through the prism of being a minority, not being part of the white majority any longer. So that is my story. I know in post 9/11, 20 years, there's so much media coverage of different voices, and I appreciate you including this in the conversation as well, because my story is not unbelievably unique to Arab Americans who were born and raised here, who actually thought they were just typical white people. After 9/11, it was made very clear to them by society they were not.
Yeah, and in fact, typical Americans, in quotes, or regular Americans, in quotes, is kind of code for white people, generally speaking. And how has this experience, we're talking with Dean Obeidallah, host of the Dean Obeidallah Show here on Sirius. How has this experience changed your understanding of other minority groups, of gender minority groups or other racial minority groups or religious minority groups?
That's a great question. And because on some level, I just want to say, you know, we hear in America that race is a social construct. And I'm the living manifestation of that. My skin color is the same as it was pre-9/11. It was the way I was treated, the way my community, more importantly, was treated. The fact that I had death threats directed at me post-9/11 because of my faith, being Muslim, and my heritage, white people don't have that. The result is, in the post-9/11 world, as I increasingly began to embrace my minority status, is that I feel a kinship to other minorities. It's not like pre-9/11, I was still a liberal, but it was more intellectual connection. I would hear about demonization of a minority group or discrimination, and intellectually, I would respond. Now it's visceral because I know the pain firsthand, what they're going through when politicians demonize other minority groups. I know the pain they're feeling when they're being openly discriminated against, or there's bigots on Fox News or right-wing media using their community for political gain or to sell books and to make money from it, because that's happened in my community. So now I'm a much better ally with other minorities because we're together. You know, I have skin in the game because I have felt the pain and the sting of bigotry firsthand, and my community has as well.
Do you think America has learned a lesson from this? I realize that it's almost kind of a trite and cliched question, but I think that there's a the rant that I was doing before about Donald Trump kind of leading our country toward authoritarianism and neo-fascism, and as a consequence of his example for 4 years We've got people blowing up on airplanes. Going after flight attendants.
Right, sure.
And we've got people, yelling at women for this story out of Colorado, where the young women on the beach, you're wearing a bikini, how dare you? This is America. Like you should be in a burqa or something. You've got vigilante groups. You've got an entire state, Texas, that just legally embraced vigilantism, or vigilantism, I guess is how you say it.
Sure.
And it's like it seems to me that when you look at countries, you see that, and this is true of companies, by the way. I've noticed this over the years, running companies and interacting with other companies, and it's true of families, that basically the leadership, the parent figures, the leadership of the company, the mom and dad in the family, the head of government, the head of state, that they establish the tone, whether it's Duterte killing people in the Philippines, Bolsonaro, his son apparently is running these militias where they're going around beating up and killing his political opponents and intimidating people. This is happening, around the world in countries that are flipping to authoritarianism. George W. Bush, he wasn't the worst fearmonger on this. He gave some good lip service to there are good Muslims out there and that kind of stuff. But I don't think that I don't think he did anything close to what he could have done to dial this back. But we went through this, and it was amplified and hystericalized, by the right for the better part of a decade. And now we've got it again as a consequence of Trump. Only it's being largely directed toward black people and Hispanic people, and my hope is that Joe Biden, being a decent and compassionate person, maybe the perfect person at this moment, or one of them, is able to pull us back from that precipice, is able to kind of undivide America, whether it's the Muslim Christian division, or Arab white person division that you're talking about, or whether it's all these other divisions. What are your thoughts on all that?
I don't think it's possible for Joe Biden to turn the clock back and what Donald Trump has unleashed. What Donald Trump has done, he didn't make his base hate Muslims or any kind of bigotry that they believe in. Donald Trump just let his base be exactly who they always wanted to be. Tom, this is who they are. They had to hide it for years and decades because society said it was no longer acceptable to say, I don't want any more Muslims in this country like Trump did. And 66% of GOP primary voters in 2016 agreed with that. He didn't make them like that. Finally, there is someone saying what I think. He didn't make them.
No, I get that, Dean, but right. They are making another generation like that. There's a huge component of evangelism here, whether it's explicit and overt or whether it's simply being in the stew, whether it's just cultural exposure to bigotry.
Look, I don't know. All I can tell you is everything we're seeing is deeply alarming from the point of view. You mentioned George W. Bush. 20 years ago, about a week from now, he said, you're either with us or you're with the terrorists. 20 years later, the GOP is saying, literally, you're either with terrorist Trump or you're out of the GOP. That's how far that party has come.
Yeah.
It is now a party there have been Republicans who demonize the Muslim community in the name of fighting terrorism, who made our lives a living hell. Spike and hate crimes, our mosques were attacked, terrorist plots against us. These same Republicans are now defending the January 6th terrorist attack and the terrorists by name and celebrating Donald Trump, the man who incited the act of domestic terrorism on January 6th. Donald Trump was the Osama bin Laden of January 6th. The fact that he walks free every day and spews the same lie that radicalized people to attack us on January 6th, every day he's out, is one day less our nation is safe. It's one day more we go down that path to violence, pockets of violence, potentially more than pockets.
Yeah.